happened to Mazda's ultimate supercar that wowed the world when it first came out, but then went up in a ball of flames and was never seen again? What has happened to the spellbinding, gobsmacking Mazda Furai? Well, I have asked Mazda and they sent me quite a spiky response, which you will see later in the video. So today is story time, and I'm gonna do it from the seat of a Mazda RX-7 from our friends at Torque GT. And if you want to buy this car, we'll put a link in the description below. I like my job. This is actually my first time in a rotary engine car. And I realize I'm very lucky that it's a pristine RX-7. I am an engine guy, and to be honest, I'm a bit gutted it's taken me this long to experience a rotary. What a beautiful engine. Yes, I know they have their issues with apex seals, cooling, this, that, and the other. But wow, how freely does it rev, just on the clutch now. Oh God, if you want to blip, oh, it just dances up the rev counter. It gives you a little bleep to say, oh, you're up past 8,000 RPM, maybe think about shifting me. Ugh, what a thing. A lot of you will have come across this car before, but if you haven't, the Furai was a track-oriented supercar created by Mazda to kick off a new design language at the company, and it was a hell of a way to do it. On top of how wild the car looks, one of the most striking features are the headlights, just one continuous line from one side to the other. Its name means sound of the wind, and you could either see that as a soft, tickling summer breeze or a gale force North Sea storm. Up to you. The Mazda Furai was one of 5 concept cars that were designed under a new design language called Nagari, and all of them were touted to be the embodiment of Zoom Zoom. Remember those adverts? Zoom, zoom, zoom. Yeah, zoom, zoom, zoom. We probably all saw the car for the first time on Top Gear in Series 11, where it was showed statically in the studio. But the car was then handed over to Top Gear magazine, and that was where it met its end. More on that in a bit. But outside of Top Gear, it was also a gaming legend, having featured on Gran Turismo 5 and 6, CSR Racing, Forza, and a whole bunch of others. It even made it as a Hot Wheels car. So what is this amazing looking car underneath? What engineering is going on? Well, maybe predictably, it's a full frontal race car. Underneath, it is a Courage C65 LMP2 car. That was a chassis that Mazda had been racing in the previous year of the American Le Mans series. So think of the Furai as an LMP2 racing car with a bespoke body put on top. But it isn't just some artsy-fartsy design created by some overly artistic visionary. No, it looks the way it does because of the top CFD software of the time. The real hardcore Mazda bit of the car was the engine, a 2-litre triple-rotor R20B, that being the development of the engine found in the 757B endurance racing car. Now, a lot of publications will say that the Furai had the rotary engine out of the 787B, or a development of it, but that thing was a 4-rotor, and it's a car that triggers me beyond belief. Imagine having a car winning at Le Mans that was 12 seconds off the pace in qualifying. Yes, the 787B sounds amazing. But compared to the Jaguars or Saubers of 1991, it was an absolute slug. So slow. I'm gonna get in trouble for saying that, but come on. The R20B in the Furai was putting out 450 brake horsepower using E100 fuel. It was made by a company called Racing Beat. If you hop on their website, they will still sell you a rebuild kit for a Mazda triple rotor engine to this day. Come on, Mazda PR, let's get this car back up and running. Yes, it will be a long road back, but with the power of the internet, we can do it. Tavares is nearly done with his flooded McLaren P1. What's a slightly crispy Mazda? How does a Wankel rotary engine work then? Well, it's an internal combustion engine still,
but it's missing a lot of components that you'd find in most other car engines, like conrods, camshafts, and inlet and outlet valves. Instead, you have an eccentric shaft, essentially the rotary's crankshaft, rotors that take the place of pistons, and those rotors sit in housings that form the blocks of the engine, with an intermediary housing between each chunk. They are 4-stroke engines, with those 4 strokes occurring over 1 full rotation of a rotor, which equates to 3 rotations of the eccentric shaft. To start the cycle, the rotor rotates to allow an intake of air, which is mixed with fuel in the ever-changing chamber of the engine. Then, that concoction is compressed as the rotor presses it into the side of the chamber. Spark plugs then ignite that mixture, with the explosion further spinning the rotor until it exposes the exhaust port, expelling the excess gases and starting the process all over again. So there's no inlet and outlet valves, the rotor simply exposes and then covers the inlet and exhaust ports, allowing them to do their thing.
What's really cool about a rotary engine is because the way it's sectioned, you can add rotors to it. Imagine being able to add pistons to a normal engine. This RX-7 has 2 rotors, as does an RX-8, but people on the internet have created triple rotor, even 4-rotor engines like the racing cars from the 90s. You have the rotor housing, and then an intermediary housing, and then another rotor housing, and then you just keep going, section after section, creating a massive, powerful rotary engine. If you want to see someone doing that to an unbelievable degree, definitely go and check out Rob Dam's channel. His RX-7 is unbelievable.
What makes rotaries so great is that in a twin rotor, there are only 3 moving parts, the 2 rotors and the eccentric shaft through the middle. It also has 0 reciprocating mass. It's constantly rotating instead of a piston engine that reciprocates up and down and is restricted by how quickly its valves can open and shut. This means a rotary can rotate much more freely, hence why they can rev so high, so easily, with very little vibration.
The way to compare a rotary engine to a normal piston engine comes down to the quirky combustion cycle of a Wankel motor, but the basic way to compare them is to double the displacement of the rotary. So the 1.3 that's in this RX-7 can be compared to a 2.6 litre piston engine. So the 2 litre in the Furai can be more compared to a 4 litre engine, so a big straight 6 or a fairly normal V8. And considering the Furai put out 450 brake horsepower, that pretty much checks out. Cooling can be an issue in rotaries because there's 3 combustion events per cycle. That's a lot of revs, a lot of explosions, and therefore a lot of waste heat that you want to wick away from the block so that it doesn't cook itself. With all of that in mind, having a car that looked like that sounded like this, the Furai should have been an all-time great.
What happened to the car then? Well, after featuring on the TV show, Top Gear magazine took it out for a spin at RAF Bentwaters to take some pictures of it on the move. A works driver was behind the wheel, and the photographer was ironically focusing on getting flame shots out of the exhaust, a fantastically cool trait of a rotary engine car. But it seems with all that heat trapped under that tightly packaged bodywork, especially with open flames kicking around, the car got too hot and caught on fire. Especially when the car is turning and there's little airflow flushing out any trapped heat, you can see why things got a bit flamey. The guys on set then heard the engine start to sound very poorly indeed, but being down the wrong end of the runway from any emergency services, the flames took hold too quickly, and before they knew it, the Furai was gone.
So this is a 1990s Japanese sports car with a 9,000 RPM engine and 50-50 weight distribution, along with rear wheel drive. What a recipe that is! Do you know what? We're about 2 or 3 weeks from that Skyline R34 drive that I did, and check out that video up there if you want to have a look at that. I take this over a Skyline. As far as the internet is aware, the charred remains of the Furai were shipped back to Mazda's USA design studio and they've never been seen since. So, I decided to drop them a line. I decided to email the Mazda US press office asking the whereabouts of the Furai, and the response was fairly abrupt. Hi Mike, thank you for reaching out about the Mazda Furai concept race car. We cannot share the current location of the concept. And that was it. That was the end of the email. I've sent many emails to press offices. That is by far the most abrupt answer I've ever gotten. So for whatever reason, be it embarrassment about the fire, or maybe there's future plans that they don't want anyone knowing about, it's quite clear Mazda does not want us to know where the concept car currently is. Maybe then there's a darker issue going on. Is there something legal, or is there a liability issue with this car? Surely, if the answer is that abrupt, there's more to this story. Maybe one of you guys has some intel that the rest of the internet doesn't. If so, comment it down below or send a DM to me on Instagram. I reckon this story goes deeper than Mazda are letting on. What does the future of Mazda look like then? Well, they keep showing us concepts like the RX Vision and the iconic SP recently, and how many times have we heard rumours of an RX-9? Mazda are steadfast in defending the rotary engine, saying that they're going to keep them going, but it probably won't be in the way that we want them to be, like in this car. They will probably use rotaries as range extenders for hybrid vehicles in the same way that BMW does with the i3. That will mean that you won't be going up and down the revs via a gearbox. It will probably be stuck at a single RPM to work most efficiently and charge up a battery. To be honest, that is disappointing. That you're not going to be able to rev it up to 9,000 RPM like in this RX-7. It revs so freely in this car. Really, the rotary engine is currently circling an emissions plug hole. It's gone from powering sports and supercars. But there could be hope on the horizon. Richard Hammond, the boss, is currently getting stuck in to integrating synthetic fuels over here in the UK. If that goes well, he could prolong the use of less fuel efficient engines in performance cars potentially forevermore. Could Richard Hammond save the Wankel? Maybe one day we'll travel over to the USA and be allowed to unearth the remnants of the Mazda Furai, arguably the greatest bedroom wall poster car of them all.